Once again, this broke, and that is the judge has come in and blocked the birthright citizenship order, even despite the Supreme Court ruling specifically on this issue, with a very nuanced approach. And look, I've said this whole situation, I'm not sure what side I land on in terms of the actual birthright citizenship portion about this. But whether President Trump has the right to do this, I think is a very different story. They figured out another loophole to put in a pause.
So this is a federal judge out of New Hampshire this time that issued a preliminary injunction. And the way that this was done was by issuing a class action certification for a class of plaintiffs, which are, in this case, infants. And one of our people on our legal team said, I wonder if it includes the unborn or if it's only born babies, but that are protected by this. But when you look at what they did, it actually tracks by finding a loophole with what was brought up in the opinion by Justice Barrett, where she was arguing nationwide injunctions are trying to shortcut around rules that are already in place and have been for a long time, specifically Rule 23 of the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure, which govern the rigorous process of certifying a class for a class action suit. That would allow a judge to offer broader relief than just the plaintiffs before the court. And that's exactly what this judge has done here. He has certified a class that will receive relief from the court. Now, here's what we don't know yet, Logan. The opinion, the written opinion by this judge, he has not put out yet that goes along with this order. So we need to see that to really understand if he did something that Justice Alito was concerned about. Right
now, it's just a top-line kind of breaking news headline, if you will.
And the judge said that order and that opinion will be out later today. But Justice Alito put this, actually, I'm going to save it for the next segment, because Justice Alito had a warning about what could happen, even though he joined the opinion in full by Justice Barrett. In his concurrence, he kind of issued a warning, and we're going to get into that when we come back, because that's what we don't know. If this judge was going against what Justice Alito warned about, or if he followed this rigorous process.
This is another federal judge coming in, blocking one of President Trump's plans, now saying that the birthright citizenship argument can be turned into a class action argument, a class action on behalf of all infants. Again, now testing sort of the powers of the lower courts versus the Supreme Court that seemed to, the intentionality of the Supreme Court may not have been this.
In what we heard from Justice Alito through his concurring opinion, in his concurrence with Justice Barrett's opinion, was that he did join the decision in full, but here's kind of the warning he put out. He said, putting the kibosh on universal injunctions does nothing to disrupt Rule 23's requirements. Of course, Rule 23 may permit that the certification of nationwide classes in some discrete scenarios. But district courts should not view today's decision as an invitation to certify nationwide classes without scrupulous adherence to the rigors of Rule 23. Otherwise, the universal injunction will return from the grave under the guise of nationwide class relief, and today's decision will be of little more than minor academic interest.
He almost gave them the idea.
Yeah. And he says lax enforcement of requirements for third-party standing and class certification would create a potentially significant loophole to today's decision. Federal courts should thus be vigilant against such potential abuses of these tools. I do not understand the court's decision to reflect any disagreement with these concerns, so I join its decision in full. But once again, that's the warning. And also kind of although not the full opinion of the court, in his concurrence is kind of putting the courts on notice of saying, you better follow the rules, in this specific rule, Rule 23. That's what we don't know currently about what this judge in New Hampshire has done. Has he followed that process and scrupulously adhered to the process of Rule 23 in granting the class? Because this group had already filed this lawsuit before the Supreme Court decision. However, they filed a motion to make a protected class within this lawsuit after the opinion of the Supreme Court, and that is what this judge has granted. We will see if he followed Rule 23 strongly, but I think if he didn't, it also gives the government an opportunity on an appeal to try and overturn this. It is interesting because, once again, the issue at hand is the one that is more, I would say, gray area, even on the right, as far as whether the birthright citizenship order should have even been a thing. But that, once again, is kind of the test for all of these issues that we're seeing play out of the judicial power versus executive power.
Don't we have a layer of quote-unquote protection for the executive orders and, quite frankly, the rule of law?
It does feel, obviously, these feel politically motivated.
Right.
They're going to feel politically motivated. Why? Because they are politically motivated. Now, that's not to say that Republicans haven't done the same thing. It's not to say that this isn't part of playing the game in Washington, D.C. It's just a bit more on Front Street right now because we've been able to see it and track it over and over and over again. It's also because President Trump has taken a lot of quick actions. So he took a lot of quick actions right when he started. And with that, you had the answers coming in from these judges very quickly. And then it became a trend. And then it became a moment for celebrity and popularity. Because if you're one of these judges that can stop one of President Trump's quote unquote, problematic bills or whatever it may be, then maybe you can become hero worshipped. So remember, ego plays a huge part of this. There are good judges. I don't want to act like every judge is a bad judge. There are specific ones who, sure, that are unsavory, but there are a lot that are doing good things. We've seen some big successes recently. Even what's going on, though Massachusetts, we know what happened in Planned Parenthood. We also have an update on how we're getting involved in even more of those pro-life fights. And a lot of times, those are with judges who are at least sympathetic.
Yesterday, we found out that Planned Parenthood, with the defunding issue that they took to federal district court in Massachusetts, they had asked for an extension of the temporary restraining order to last even longer because they had a scheduling conflict with one of the 9 lawyers that was on the case. So they filed a motion with the judge. The Trump administration pushed back and said, hey, why don't we do the hearing earlier? Let's not give them more time. They're the ones who brought the suit. Let's go ahead and move this up. The judge actually agreed with the Trump administration, even though this judge has issued injunctions against the president, has really been a key judge, an Obama appointee for some of the left's lawfare carrying out against the actions of the administration. Okay. But said, let's move the hearing up. The briefing schedule remains the same. And the ACLJ will be filing tomorrow with that court.